All right, all right.
We're now on live. Gone. Yeah.
Hello. And as usual, we start off with technicals. Lovely. Hello, people. Yes. Once again, Black Eyes TV in the house, bringing you another episode live from London. Me and my co-host Terry Riggs. Speak to them, Terry.
Yes, my people. Now today's a big day, a beautiful day, and a day that we have two greats in our presence from the UK. The one they call Dean from the big old Solution Rooms, Suits Directs. Make sure you go and buy your suit before you go for your interview. And then you've got the big man, Julian Hall, who does the Ultra Kids, and he's going to break down his part. How are you doing, fellas? Can you hear me? Take him off the mute,
Good, man.
please.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm ultra.
Ultra, yeah, that's it. Ultra Kid.
Ultra.
Yes, phenomenal Superman.
There's no other
Okay.
way.
So, Dean, break it
Yes,
down
sir.
for us. Tell us what you're about, what you're doing, and what you're trying to give for the community. Fire away.
Absolutely. Well, having had businesses since the age of 18, I have been Malcolm Little, and I cannot pretend I don't know what I do know, looking at our children and our people now. So over the last 7 months, I came up with an architecture based on Dr. Claude Anderson's Powernomics. However, seeing that sometimes we struggle for so long, we forget what we're struggling for. What we want is economic emancipation. And that's only going to be based on an ecosystem. Anything that's not based on an ecosystem has no opportunity for longevity. And trees emit what I ingest, and I ingest what trees emit. That is intelligent design. They take in my carbon dioxide and I take in their oxygen. Were that to be interrupted in any way, that ecosystem is broken and our way of living would be done. So what I realized very quickly is that in the architecture, we need, sorry. So what I realized very quickly is that we need an ecosystem. That ecosystem for us is socioeconomic. So it goes across the educational platform, which is our first contact with white supremacy. And I realized that that socioeconomic reformation has to totally not replace, because we don't want to replace what's being done to us. It has to be a complete alternative to white supremacy, because any component that's missing means that we're going to have to go back and rely on white supremacy for short-term gains. So very quickly, I realized that our first point of contact is education. So I said, let me get a community of educators together to create an African-based educational curriculum, which goes through financial and emotional literacy, because we need our children to be balanced and we need them to be competent. But then we need great citizenship skills in there, which means that we need them to go through a rites of passage, and we need a great sense of community. But then we also need a great sense of cultural value for our children. So that amalgamation is being formed now in a complete, what we would desire to be, a universal African Caribbean curriculum to be delivered within our own buildings. So there is an economic department, there is a charitable department, because this money comes from our own funds, just like everybody else's does. I won't go into the minutiae of it, because at this level, those communications are for those who are active in creating the solutions. But I will say this much: as soon as this is effectively communicated to the general public and business owners, it will be an irresistible proposition. And what is being done here is being mirrored in the States. It will be mirrored across the Caribbean, and it will be mirrored in Africa, because this is an international solution. This is our trilateral commission. That is how we go from growing the bananas in St. Lucia, Jamaica, the Bahamas, or wherever, packaging them, distributing them, selling them, and retailing them. We need to go from source to public via our own financial apparatus. And the entire financial apparatus is there. In apps that we had in the traditional way, like the partners, when we used to get homes with ease, before we discovered they wanted to give us bank accounts, then we stopped getting yards. So we must deal with our function. So the question that those who are employed by European media would ask me with our faces, as I experienced on the weekend, is, why would you abandon a system? Why wouldn't you try and fix it? If I had a jalopy that now work, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm going to get a new car, because to somebody stupid, that sounds smart. Base what you do on historical reference point. If it has not happened in the past, take for granted it will not happen, because you are unique. And when you touch your chest in the shower, you are black. But black doesn't exist in the real world. Africa is a continent, regardless if the name was given by Scipio Africanus. Here we are. So we have to dispose of the intellectual masturbation and deal with what is. Because the descendants of Khazarian Empire, that we know as modern day kosher cowboys in Tottenham, utilized a race to gain reparations. Now, as far as I'm concerned, reparations is a unicorn that we are chasing. But there is another finance out there, which is totally controlled by us, which we will take into our own hands and extrapolate from the nation. And that is how we will purchase our freehold buildings, commercial buildings, place them into trust, and convert them into schools, community centers, which also double up as conference centers when we bring over the likes of the amazing Dr. Claude Anderson or Dr. Boyce Watkins. And when they put a freeze on their movement for any reason, we will project them from wherever they are located. And they will be on the screens, big as a cinema, in our conference centers, come community centers. We will also purchase and convert them into children's homes to rescue our children from the system where they are sexually abused, where exponentially their chances of suicide, drug abuse, prostitution go through the roof. And they will experience the exact same African-based education that I'm talking about our educators are putting together right now. So what I will say the Solution Room is not, is an organization. It's a think tank which brings together our brightest and best. Now, when you deal with infrastructure, I don't think any of us have quantified just how much that's going to exponentially grow everybody's businesses, because you're talking about national adoption of everybody's programs that contributes. Where we are now marketing and looking for growth outside, all of that is inside. So when you're talking about schools, our students are worth money. Not only that which will come from internally us, but will be provided by the state. And I will say to everybody watching in the UK right now, especially Lewisham residents, register to vote. This is going to be one of our lowest turnouts ever. And we have an independent black candidate. And as soon as you will know his name, the man has Lewisham in his DNA. You'd say, I couldn't think of anybody else for Lewisham as an independent mayor to bring us access to the local resources. So when that man steps forward, be prepared. Have your weapon, click, put him into office. Then we will see local resources fairly shared with us in Lewisham. And Lewisham's a fantastic borough. It just needs to reach its pivotal optimization.
Listen, that was a nice way to start the show off. Again, thank you Dean Oki, just giving us a quick breakdown about his position in the community, what he thinks. And again, the name of the show today is The Mind State of an Entrepreneur and Building that Next Generation ready for success, ready for that economic success. So without further ado, we're going to go to our second guest now to introduce himself and give us the breakdown, Mr. Julian Hall. Talk to the people then.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I feel like giving Dean a big round of applause for that opening. Dean don't play, so it's good to, yes. You have to show appreciation where appreciation is due. So first of all, I just want to say that it's great being on with Dean. So I've been watching Dean's movements, and salute to you, brother. What you're doing is very necessary, it's very needed, and I like the approach of the solution room, because I guess for a long time, whether it's in politics and education, in media, everyone talks about the problem, but we don't often enough talk about the solution. So my perspective, where do I fit into all of this? I guess my aha moment came a few years ago when I realized that both entrepreneurship and education were the reason why I was able to do a number of the things that I did in my life. And I've seen it act as a huge enabler, not just for me, but for members of my family, people in my community, young people who wanted to change their situation, and also the next generation. Not many people talk about children. We talk about kind of young people, teenagers, but not many people talk about children. And the fact is, those children are very quickly going to become young people. So I remember being 18, Dean and I share a similarity that I started my first business when I was 18 too. And I actually remember it like it was yesterday. And I now think to myself, okay, what's going to happen in the next 20 years, in the next 30 years? Time is speeding up in a way that it hasn't before, whether it's actual or perceived. But when you think about the impact that children and young people are going to have on our future, it's considerable. Their contributions are going to be considerable towards, if we're talking about, the name of the show is based on legacy, right? And, I just can't see how we're going to create that legacy without having children and young people central to that conversation. So I've done a lot of work with adults over the years, and I guess not so much, it was a frustration, but it was also an opportunity in that I realized that the mindset issue that a lot of adults face is usually tied into something that they picked up when they were younger, right? Mm-hmm. And I also felt like there were enough people out there looking after the adults, and but not many people had an eye on young people and children particularly. So that's kind of where my work took me. And there was a number of things that I realized that when you look at kids, there isn't an adult who doesn't know a kid who's been selling sweets at school, or trying to hustle their way to get some new Jordans or a PS4 or whatever it might be. But usually what happens is that child is very quickly shut down. So the school shut them down from selling in school. And oftentimes parents shut kids down by telling them, stop that foolishness, go read a book, or stop that foolishness, go get a job. And that's just because the parents, not necessarily through an intrinsic fault of their own, but if they're not used to a growth mindset, if they're not used to innovation and entrepreneurship and, challenging their own comfort zones, they're going to replicate what they feel is success on their children, right? So what you have is you have a generation, and I actually believe when you talk about entrepreneurship, you can replace the word entrepreneurship with innovation, creativity, thinking outside of the box. You know, entrepreneurship is just a word that people have found difficult to define, but it is certainly attached to all of those things that we know are required of us as adults, young people and children, to be able to effectively operate in today's society, and for children to be able to operate in the future. So I believe that we have those things by default. As we're born, we have those things. And what happens is, and educators know this, education, school, society shuts down or shuts off those areas of creativity, innovation, thinking outside the box, even aspects of resilience and creative thinking, that gets shut off. So if you think about it, when kids are in primary school, there's a huge push around learning through play. Mm-hmm. And so that's all nice. They're running around the playground, you know, they're getting dirty, they're rolling around and all this kind of stuff, right? And there's a focus on fun. As soon as they get into secondary school or towards the end of primary school, then they're introduced to the exams, right? Then they get SATs at the end of primary school. And I mean, you've got kids who are getting signed off from school at 8, 9 years old with stress because of the way that the educational system is. I mean, just think about that for a second. You've got children who are losing sleep because of an exam, right? So then they then go into secondary school, and then what they're told is, all right, playtime done. You've now got to think about what you're going to be when you grow up. And you've now got to work towards your GCSEs. And if you fail your GCSEs, it's the worst thing that can ever happen to you. So no pressure. And they do this at the time when there's a big transitionary problem going from primary to secondary school. There's a big identity problem because they're now with a whole bunch of new kids. Everyone's sizing up each other, hormones are racing. And then you've stripped the fun out of education. So you've now reduced their ability to absorb learning because they're now not interested in it, because it's now not fun or engaging. And then you put on this huge weight of exams and GCSEs and your work experience. And I look at this and I just think, if you take a step back, it looks so ridiculous from the outside looking in, that you do have to consider an alternative. And for a lot of people, every week I meet parents who are taking their kids out of school for lots of reasons. It could be because they're being targeted, because their child is so creative, they get labeled ADHD. And, you know, so, there is the teachers can't facilitate that kind of creativity because school isn't designed for that. And I've said this before, that if you look at it historically, school is set up to produce factory workers. It's set up to produce people who are just going to do low-end jobs that are repetitive, laborious tasks. It's not set up to foster genius, to foster creativity, to foster, the captains of industry. That's not kind of what school is there for, right? So what you have on the fringes of education are third-party providers who will come in and work with educators to try and, pick up from where education has failed. Because schools usually get third-party organizations like mine and others to come in and deal with kids when they are now disengaged from education, right? And so it's almost like a natural admission that the system is failing, because you have to have these bumpers around your system to sweep up almost the failings of the system, right? So where are we with that? There's been a lot of organizations over the last 10 years who have existed to help progress young people throughout education and into employment and all the rest of it. And for those who work in those types of organizations, and I'm not going to say their names, they've just become sausage machines of tick box type operations who are just using young people to get paid, basically. And they're not really interested in young people going into employment that they're really going to love and enjoy. They just want them to hit a target so they can draw down some government funding, right? And with schools, as Dean said, you know, when kids come into a school, teachers and, you know, heads see them as it's a revenue stream for them. And, you know, I guess not to defend the head teachers, but they're running a business, and no one really sees schools as a business, but it is, right? If you look at the balance sheet of a school, it's like that of a business, but the children are the products of that school, right? So what I'm saying that to say, we've got to see things for what they are, not for what we think they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's no point romanticizing about school being this thing that's going to develop your children to the nth degree, because even teachers will tell you that's not what school does. So there's no point us believe, because, you know, we were sold this dream, I guess, that is what school does, and society is supposed to, you know, provide everything else that requires a young person to reach their fullest potential. So I think now we're at the point where that dream has been shattered, and we're now looking at the reality of the situation. And I guess there's a lot of heartbreak, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration around what do we do now, right? What is the solution? How do we address this? And I guess, you know, there were people going off in tangents and people relying on what they've been taught, the approaches that they've been taught to solve this problem. And I guess looking at it as objectively as I can, there's the requirement for the solution to be addressed from many different angles. One of the reasons why no one's nailed this is because there isn't a magic bullet. There is no one solution. There is no, like, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and say, right, ultra education has the answer to everything. It's ridiculous. We need a multi-pronged approach to dealing with all of the reasons. It's like when people turn around and say, oh, you know, on my Facebook timeline, I'll hear people saying, how can we solve knife crime? And it's the music, it's the parents, it's the schools, it's everything, right? If it was that easy, don't you think it would have been solved a long time, right? So because it's such a complex problem, we need, I don't want to say we need a complex solution, we need a multifaceted solution. Yeah. And I guess what gives me comfort is that I know that the individuals who can be part of that solution do exist. They may not be as visible as they need to be, but they do exist. And we do have within our communities, and we do have within reach of our young people and children and even adults, the experts, the practitioners, and the businesses and the people who can help transform, and the solution providers for this. The thing that we're not doing is we're not working together. Right. And, you know, I know that's a common theme, and that's been a common theme for a long, long time. And I suppose we need initiatives to help get us into that mindset. So things like the Solution Room help to get us and to pull us more closely together so that we can start to get to know each other more, start to do smaller projects, start to work and start to build towards a common goal. And do we need to define that down to the nth degree? Not necessarily. I think the target is moving, but I think we've got the natural rhythm to be able to move with it and adjust wherever that target is going. Because one thing we don't know is what's going to happen tomorrow morning. But what we do know is that we can, if we are more definite about our plans, shape our future and therefore a legacy. And I just want to end this portion with one thing. It's quite common for businesses in places like Japan and China to have a 100-year plan. And I don't mean countries, I mean businesses. It's like a trend over there. So that's when you're talking about legacy, right? Legacy isn't what's my business or organization going to do at the end of the year. To me, that's not legacy. Legacy is something that when you're thinking about your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren, that to me is legacy. And I think that it's forced me anyway to think in a very different way. And so it's less about overnight. It's a lot more strategic. It's a lot more, thinking actually, the things that I'm setting up are going to require some sacrifice in my time, my finances, to be able to provide a framework that other generations can build on, and to be okay with that. Because I think we need to get out of the mindset that puts us within a certain timeline of our lifetime, because that's not how all of these other successes that we see, and even if we talk about all these big brands, they didn't think like that. They didn't think about, okay, what can I get out of this in my lifetime? That's not how they set up. So we're now applauding all of these big organizations, but we're not, and all of these other companies and even countries, but we're not thinking like them. And I think we need to, you know, to use the term shifting our mindset is a bit passé, but we need to move towards a different way of thinking that is extremely long term. And I think until we do that, and we can do that in a cohesive manner, it's going to be very difficult for us to leave behind a legacy. And, you know, I think the more of us that can start thinking that way, I think we can start to make a dent into what we need to do going forward to address some of the problems in front of us.
Yeah, lovely, lovely. I'm feeling the round up there. Terry, you got something that you want to add?
I'm off. Yeah. Thank you, brothers. I like the intro. I like the information. This is a thing that we need to talk about and stop hiding and just come and put this into the forefront. Now, for my overview of over the whole thing, and I see where we need to teach and give our youths, because we've been indoctrinating our youths from a young age of what we've been taught from. And like, as I always say, it's that format of how the Romans, because if you go into the history, you understand that when the Romans conquered somewhere, they took the firstborn of every child, took them to Rome, learned the Roman way, and then put them back into their motherland. So now they've been indoctrinated with the Roman way. Now we do the same thing when we now take our children and put them into the schools in the European diaspora. They learn the European way. Now our system of way we do things, because if you understand, in the past, we used to trade. We used to do a lot of things. So we now forget that, and the child now able to rebel against the adult or the elder. So when I hear the things that you lot are coming from and where we're doing this, it's to able to change that mindset. So what I want to ask you, Dean, is in your journey, what kind of mindset brought you to where you were? Because people want to understand that so they can progress up forward.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I will say is anyone who is a true entrepreneur will never extrapolate the spiritual component. And from I was a child, I always had a lion spirit, because you just heard about the Jay-Z nod because you've seen Jay-Z do it. Since I was a child, I used to look at teachers, and when they told me I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that, I would look at them. I never believed them. I was aware innately of who I was. And as much as they tried to drive it out of me, when I was 17, I read Malcolm X. And when I read Malcolm X, that gave me a clarity, as if I was shot through my forehead with a diamond bullet. I knew exactly who I was, and I could have run away from my purpose my whole life. I had it there for me. I say all the time, that was my spiritual father. And my two grandfathers, whose name I have, Richard Bailey and Richard Okai, were businessmen. And both of those men were born in me. So when I read Malcolm X, I knew exactly how they tried to drive it out of you. And I said I wanted to increase my vocabulary, my articulation. I evolved the way that I dressed. I always wore a watch. So when my friends had seen me in North Peckham Estate on New Cross with the baggy jeans that we used to wear then with the tight rolls, I always had a book in the back of my pocket. Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. But I was 17 and 18 years old, possibly in petty criminal and slightly illicit trades. never ever sold narcotics, but I had a book and I was reading and I was developing my mind. At 18 years old, I joined Panther UK exclusively because Stephen Lawrence was killed. Stephen Lawrence was murdered the previous weekend, and I joined Panther UK on the Friday night, the 7th of May, 1993. The 8th of May, 1993 was the march in Welling, where I've seen human beings kick down a brick wall, which is why my understanding is practical. I watched young men and women physically kick down brick walls, loot the weapon shops, smash the BNP headquarters, where the BNP hid inside the BNP headquarters in Welling. Now, unfortunately, because of my observations, one of Her Majesty's police clapped me in my eye, and I still have the evidence to this day from a truncheon. I did not feel the pain of that clap until about 8 hours afterwards, and it rang out in decibels. However, my education was a baptism of fire. So I would go to SOAS, Hammersmith and West, and I would speak at the Brixton Rec frequently for Panther UK. At the same time, I had a pirate video operation, which was my small empire, where I had 10 video recorders and I used to buy 500 blanks at a time. I would box them up, 20 in a box, sell them for £5 each, and go and pick up my £100 from the barbershop, greengrocers, and I would do that borough by borough, a war of attrition, and I would have different days where I go to different areas, and my phone number and Roots video was on the cover, so that when the customers phone that number, then I would get the retail and not the wholesale. Now, although that was an illicit trade, which also got shut down by the constabulary who rudely entered my apartment 2 years into my trade at about 25 to 7 in the morning, unannounced, much to my surprise, that taught me manufacturing, credit control from the people I supplied, cash control, because I operated in cash. And those were all transferable skills that I've used for my entire life. Now, my credit control has become better. My negotiation skills are fantastic. And I might be personable. So I'm a consummate salesman. My son is a consummate salesman. He's also my technician. So I homeschool him because I cannot give anybody the opportunity to destroy his spirit. He is my technician. Were he not here with me to collect the take-ins from the shop, we would not be speaking now because he set up the computer for me.
So real talk. We done saw your son getting on the technical skills to set you up for the show. So yeah, we can testify to that. Julian, please grace us. Same question. Like, where was your mindset out before you realized your journey and started Ultra Kids and other such enterprises?
Well, I guess it was through necessity. I mean, the thing is, so when I started my first business, it was in a one-bedroom flat in Stonebridge, and it was with a couple of my friends. And that was my first experience of making money. So when I was then presented with the opportunity of, you know, getting a JOB, it didn't really appeal to me. The only trouble that I had back then was there was no such thing as a business mentor. There was no support you could go. There was no internet you could go to work out how to do X, Y, Z. So all of the subsequent businesses that I started, they all failed. Nothing would last longer than kind of, 6 to 12 months. So I had to do what everyone else was doing, which was go and get a job. But what I've now realized looking back on it is I was able to accelerate my career quite quickly from being in quite a low-end job to ending up having a career in investment banking. And it's because I could sell myself really well. It's because I understood systems and processes really well from doing a business quite early. And so anything that I picked up, I learned it very, very quickly. When I was about 7 or 8 years old is when I programmed my first computer game. I mean, I just copied the code from a magazine, But when the game didn't work, I had to go back and look at the code to see what was wrong. So kind of just via osmosis, I was picking up coding. I was comfortable with computers. So that gave me an early start in tech. And I used that to my advantage. So it kind of gave me a bit of an engineering brain. And also when I was maybe a little bit younger than that, my mum had a home-based business where she would have boxes of bows that she would, they would just be strips, and she would have to put them together to make a bow and then put them into a box. Now, she would have me help her to do that. And these boxes were as big as me. So as I was, 6, 7 years old, these boxes were huge. And I saw it as, quality time with my mum. She obviously saw it as cheap labor. But what that taught me was taking something which was huge and doing one bit at a time meant that you could then fill a big gap, fill a big box, and you would achieve something. And for me to do that with my mum, knowing I didn't at the time understand that it was connected to a financial outcome, but I understood that it was meaningful, and I understood that it meant something. And as you do something repetitively, as you know, if you do the same thing repetitively, you become really, really good at it. And in grown-up terms, that's called a process. So, my mum isn't even, she's not even really, she doesn't really realize what that activity with her did for me, but it taught me process. It taught me that if I repeat something over and over again, I can become really good at it and become the best at it. So that, I then took that into the corporate world, and I just aced everything that I did. And I took it into the business world, and I could ace everything that I did in terms of being able to do things really efficiently. And actually what that then meant was, when I was in the final years of my investment banking career, I could literally do my day job in maybe 2 or 3 hours, and I spent the rest of the time working on my own business, right? But what it also, and on top of that, what it did for me was, by the time kind of 2000 had hit, and I realized that, this 9 to 5 thing, I hated it from the day I started it. But it was a necessary evil for me at the time. I had an opportunity to revisit becoming my own boss again. So I bought myself and a business partner, bought a small .com from a guy in East London in a chip shop, which is another story. But we then turned that .com into a business that matched our investment banking salaries within a couple of years. And then from that, another friend of mine that I grew up with in Stonebridge was then working for a company which was about to be bought by Google. And he suggested that we start up our own agency, because he said, well, if you can do that for your company, you should advise other companies on how to do it. So we then looked for the cheapest office space we could find in Shoreditch. So in 2005, 2006, the cheapest office space in London was in a place called Shoreditch, right? Which it clearly isn't now. It was what they referred to as an objective 2 area. So we took 4 of us, put ourselves in a 2-man office, and we kind of started to grow with the whole Shoreditch ecosystem. Now, what I'm saying, the reason I'm telling you the story in that way is because there was nothing that was huge. There weren't any huge leaps. There were small steps. And inside of those small steps was me recognizing a small gap. And I wedged myself through that gap, and it became a bigger opportunity. And I saw another small gap and wedged myself through that gap, and it became a bigger opportunity. And I think I've grown what I've done by doing that, and it's by just being aware. So if we're talking about entrepreneurship, people often say, how come entrepreneurs come up with great ideas? And a lot of entrepreneurs themselves don't know, but I've realized that it's because of awareness. And Dean talking about the spiritual element, the first thing you've got to be aware of is yourself, right? Know thyself is the mantra that every great sage and guru has told us to do. So the thing with entrepreneurs, and the reason why we believe we can teach it and it's not just an accident, is because most entrepreneurs have done that by accident. They can't necessarily reverse engineer why they did it, but a lot of them, and sometimes intrinsically have some kind of process that they do. So some of them say, I've got to go for a run, or I've got to lay on the beach, or I've got to read a good book. And that's what kind of gets my ideas flowing. What it's actually doing is it's actually increasing their ability to become aware of what's going on around them. If you become aware of what's going on around you, that's when you see opportunity. It's not a mistake. It's not an accident. So when we talk about these things like, you know, mindfulness and knowing yourself and awareness, what that does is it increases your ability to see what's going on around you and therefore see where the opportunities are, no matter how big or small. And that, to me, is the thing that I've done. So when you say, you know, what was my mindset like? My mindset in one way, shape or form was able to see small opportunities ahead of me and take advantage of them. And I guess it was my ability to see the potential in small opportunities. Like, I didn't have to wait for a big opportunity to present itself, because by the time that happens, it's kind of too late, right? Entrepreneurs are good at seeing an opportunity when it's small, getting in and then rising with the tide on that opportunity. Or if you get into opportunity when it's really big, you've got to come in with a lot of money and a lot of backing to take advantage of it. So at the time when I was doing these things, I wasn't aware of what my mindset was and how I was able to connect the dots on it. It's only now, as a grown man, reverse engineering how I was able to do it, that I can now identify in kids and young people why it needs to be done. The last and the really important thing about my mindset, everything that I did that was successful was something that I was really passionate about. It was something that I loved doing. So when I started with the digital agency and stuff, that was a way for me to use my technology skills that I learned when I was a child, and use my creative skills, because you needed to be creative in order to solve some of these problems, right? You know, it wasn't just a technical thing. You had to be creative. So I was able to marry those two sides of my brain, and I found that hugely engaging. And when you look at the neuroscience behind education, a child or anybody is extremely disengaged when they are learning about something that that they know a lot about, but there's no new information. They just completely disengage. At the other end, if there is completely new information, then they feel outside of their comfort zone, so that they're equally engaged. But there's a bit in the middle which fires off all the neurons, and that is when you are presented with new information about something that you're used to, or not used to, but are passionate about. So our approach to teaching kids about entrepreneurship and about business is saying, what is it that you love doing? Because that's the thing that you do all the time. But we present you with some new information that says, okay, do you realize that you can turn this into a business? Do you realize that you can make some money from it? That's the engagement bit. That's the bit that takes the information that they are already engulfed in, that they know a lot about, but we add a new dimension to it. So we're adding on to what they already love doing. We're not saying to them, okay, go off and do something completely different just because it makes money, that you have no passion for, you have no love of. Because I think that the trap that business people have been put in for the last God knows how long is following trend just because they make money. If you look at a bottle of water, the water industry is worth 3 to 4 billion. There are people on Facebook who are collecting air from the countryside and selling it to China. Everything makes money. It's not about, but the thing that enables you to become competitive and stay ahead of the game is your passion for something. Now, that sounds woolly, but if you think about it in commercial terms, if you're really passionate about something, you're really engaged in something, you will naturally want to improve it. That's called unique selling points. That's called differentiators. That's called disruptors, right? Nobody has to tell you to make this thing better. You naturally just want to make it better. There is a commercial value around that. Nobody goes out to buy something that's mediocre, to buy something that's subpar. Nobody wants a mediocre, subpar product or service. The people that will deliver or create those high-end products and services are people at some point in the process have a passion or an insight or a love for that thing. So and again, I realized that because one of the first businesses that I did that was really successful at was the digital marketing thing. It added a new spin to my technical knowledge. It added a creative spin to my technical knowledge. And I would rather do that than go raving with my friends, go and check you out, go and do all kind of things. And I realized, wow, at the time, my neurons were firing. And I realized that I could do something that nobody else could do, or it was a skill that was valuable, that was in demand. You can't beat that. As an experience, as a pure entrepreneurial experience, you cannot beat that. When you get to that point, we're talking about building self-worth and resilience and confidence in young people. When you get to that point, money is a byproduct. So when people talk about we need to make money, you can't physically make money. We're not yet anyway. Man like Dean, we'll have our own facilities soon, I'm sure, right? But right now, we cannot physically make money. Money is a byproduct of value that you create through a product or service. You can only create value through a product or service if you are passionate about it, if you have a love for it, and if you are really good at it. Then you can create the value necessary for somebody to exchange their hard-earned cash. And again, just reverse engineering my journey, I was able to do that at necessary points throughout my journey, create enough value for people to exchange what they do for their hard-earned cash for what I was able to contribute. And then I was able to grow that. So when we talk about the next generation, I go to it at the very core of what is going to make them successful. It's not about, because again, remember, my journey was, I tried lots of different business models and none of them worked. I now know why none of them worked, because I was an imposter in that industry. I'm buying and selling cars. What do I know about buying and selling cars? I did similar things to Dean. I was, flying to New York, getting merchandise, selling it, pirating videos. Really, what did I know about it? I was only doing it because it was making money. I didn't realize that me creating value, money's the byproduct of that. So that really underpins not just my journey, but our approach to teaching kids, young people and adults really about entrepreneurship. The reason why we find it works well with kids is because adults get to the point where they now no longer know what they're passionate about, because they've buried it so deep inside because someone said, you ain't gonna do that. Most people weren't as confident as Dean to have the Jay-Z head nod, be like, I can't do it. Most people didn't have that. A lot of people didn't have that. What they did was they buried it down deep inside and shut it away. So when you're now a grown man or a grown woman and someone says, what is your passion? What do you really love doing? A lot of people, I'm telling you from personal experience, don't want to tell you. It's like they're embarrassed, or they don't want someone to tell them that you can't do that. Who are you to say you're going to be a film director or a musician or an architect or a trader? Who are you? People don't want to, so they just talk about what their job is. Oh, I like my job because it's this, that. Nah, what do you actually love doing? Like, just tell me. But most people can't get to that as adults. Whereas if you ask kids, they'll tell you straight up. It's only when they get to teenage, if they've been shut down by their parents or the teachers, maybe they won't tell you. But as kids, they'll tell you. And our job is to then facilitate the link between that and their ability to sustain their livelihoods and ultimately craft their own legacy and their own destinies.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Julian. This is a part where we promote and we push all Black businesses out there and for people to shop and spend and buy from Black businesses. Like, for instance, we have a shop in Shepherd's Bush, which is called the Ankwell Bean Center, which sells a lot of products in and out. You can get your Shungai stones, you can get your health products, your Barandinas, you name it, you can get it. And even if you want to have a little lecture or you want to talk, you can even hire the premises downstairs. This is at number 10 Adelaide Grove, Shepherd's Bush, London, SW12OJJ. I repeat, 10 Adelaide Grove, Shepherd's Bush, London, W12OJJ. And then if you need to phone her, you can phone her on 0208 743 1985. I repeat, 0208 74 1985. Now, if you want any of your products or you need anything or you need to negotiate or talk to people about certain products, go to the Ankwell Bean Center. Then replicating to that, you have a shop on Brixton Hill, 102 Brixton Hill, Basel, which is Pansy. He's got all the products you need, all the things that you like, whatever you need, picture frames, clothes, just keep on spending Black. That's all you need to do. So, and with that, you have a shop called the Matt Hat Center in Tottenham. This is 366 High Street, Tottenham, London, N17 9HT. He's got all the books that you need, and even if you want to check out the Pan-African Society, he can break it all down for you. Now, they have got an event which is called the African Liberations. Now, this is in Birmingham, right? But before that, they've got a special guest who's coming in a few days, whose name is Anthony Browder. Now, they're going to have a lecture on the 26th, promoted by the PACM.
Hold out to the camera, Terry. Hold out to the camera.
I'm doing that. So that is the PMCA, right, organization, which are bringing Anthony Browder, which he's going to do a lecture, which is from the Nile to the Mississippi. Tickets are £10, right, and £15 on the door. So if you need to get down there on the 20th, it's going to be open from 6 o'clock, and it's going to close. The show event is going to start at 7 o'clock. So make sure you're early. Make sure you feed, get your food, take your children, let them learn some form of history, because history is your blueprint. So if you need to do that, but then let's get back to the African Liberations again, which we will be documenting on Black Eyes TV, as well as the Pan-African website and their YouTube channel, which will be on the Sunday, the 28th, and Monday, bank holiday, the 29th, at the St. George's Community Hub, Great Hamilton Row, Birmingham, B193JG. All right? Now, Queen Nafua is probably coming later on this year. There is a shop called the Nata Fatal in the Station Road, which she has got various products. As you can see, anyone that needs their products or herbs or even the breath of life, good for asthma, good for cleansing out your throat, you name it, it's done it. But if she's got a university over there, all you have to do is go to the Nata Fatal shop and sign up and see what it's all about. You can find out all their products. Then you've got the second products that we do, which is the Marandina, right? The Marandina by Steve Sally. Now he does the Marandina A, B, and J, which the A is all the vitamins and minerals that your body needs. The B is the blood circulation, which it gives you to circulate the minerals that you need within your body. And then you've got the Marandina J, which enables to detoxify your body. But now, as well as that, he's got a syrup, which is good for the children. So the children, it's got a blackcurrant taste, but it's a multivitamins. So you can see that right there. Now you can see that. And if you need to find out, you can inbox us or check out on hkthola@gmail.com. You can get any of these products, and as well as we've got our own in-house products, because we're now becoming a distributor, because we need to bring, if the people don't want to come as a collective, we are going to be that collective for you. So we're going to have a hub, which is going to be a distribution hub, which is called Ozin. And then the Ozin is what we call nature. It's the Orisha for forest or nature. So we're going to be doing a collective of able to buy products in forms of wholesale and able to sell the products in the form of a delivery. We'll be working with a lot of shops and a lot of products. So when that comes up, when you do the launch, you will announce it and you'll get to find about it. Thank you, Richie. Let's shoot away. Next topic. Now we're going to talk about the mindset of other people. How do you, Dean, how do you cope with the mindset of how when certain people come with their negative mindset and you want to reverse that back into a positive? Dean, your microphone. Take it.
You may have muted me. Right, I'm unmuted.
Dad, you can't say it.
Yeah.
I don't care. You're a biscuit bodyguard. You're a lamppost. I can't see you. A lamppost, I don't care how brightly the lamppost burns, bulb is broken. You're not in my way. I will circumvent you by going to your left or to your right. Your children are of all importance. They are the ones I would seek to appeal to. You see, if you've taken on this tutelage that they've given you, that you are limited as a spiritual being, in terms of your own abilities, if you tell me something can't be done, you just told me you have nothing to contribute. Therefore, I am wasting my time by speaking to you. My most valuable commodity is my time. You can't have it. I homeschool my son. He is worthy of my time. I have friends I drink rum with. They are worthy of my time. I also mentor many young men who pass through my business. I mentor team over the phone. And when I can see them physically, I mentor them. I take back from them in all of their responses, my own tutelage that I add to my own intellectual capital and my own wisdoms. I am a man of action. Man, don't converse with biscuit bodyguards. What I will say is that you should know your people implicitly. A question I'm often asked is, how do you trust them? I don't have your perception of trust. My paradigm may be far removed from yours. When I speak about trust, I speak of universal truths. I trust every man, woman, and child I know to who I want them to be. So based on who you are, I move forward. This is just factual. It's like I might say something and somebody will say to me, that's cold. The truth has no temperature, baby. I don't care. I'm going to say it as it is because I don't believe we have the time to waste. If someone is qualified, I will induct them. If somebody tells me it can't be done, then possibly you are a recipient of what we are doing. So when I speak on the mindset of our people now, there are polar extremes. There are those that know and those that don't. And then in the middle, there are people I call competent incompetence and incompetent incompetence. You see, the competent incompetent knows what they don't know. And the incompetent incompetent doesn't have a clue. This is the one that will be drinking in the hours of the plane, knock on the door and ask if the plane is on autopilot. Sit down. You have nothing to contribute. Let the pilot do his job. Those that know do. Those that don't will even learn, but they're not in the way. Remember what I said about lampposts? They're just there. As inebriated as I could be in my worst state, I'm never going to bump into a lamppost because I will circumvent them by going to their left or their right. Now, this could be someone of our people who says something can't be done or has a negative attitude. It could be Europeans who believe that they are firmly in my way. They are not. This is why in any of my manifestos, you will never hear me speak about Europeans because they are lampposts as far as I'm concerned. We are merely talking about what can be done by us, for us. And I'll let you know many meetings on the IMs, in person physically, in restaurants. We have all of the expertise. And for whatever reason, I have been able to pull these people who are now working on building institutions from banking, through finance, through construction, education, technology, amazing set of people. And I'll tell you one thing about our people. No, our women are doers. Yes, our brothers are strategists. But if you want something done, look to our women. They spring forward and they do. So when we talk about our people, we are not a homogenous set of people. There are those who the social conditioning has absolutely seeped through. And there are those who have encapsulated themselves in the best universities on earth, like YouTube, and continued with lifelong learning. Because now, if it's not lifelong learning, you have already made yourself irrelevant. So I attend the best university on earth every single day to increase my intellectual capital, to increase my access to mentors that previously I would have had no access to. There is no excuse. And furthering to what Julian said about processes not having to be an absolute, yes, in education, they need to be an absolute. But I'm going to tell you this. What we do is we fuss and we fix. It's got to be perfect. I don't want to release it. Not yet. I'm just going to get it right. Lego that. Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 9, Windows 10, Windows 11. Constantly selling and evolving and improving your processes and getting them to market and getting paid every single time.
That's what I'm talking about. That almost sounded Black Eyes TV sentiment right there, yeah? Trying to do stuff for the community. Mr. Julian, please speak on the same subject.
Just so I get it right, can you just repeat the question for me, please?
Terry,
how do I deal with negative people? Is that the question?
That's it. How do you deal with your own people as well as people of our not of our race with their negative outlooks, their blockage, and all the rest of it?
So I was going to start off by saying that I'm fortunate in that I don't have negative people around me, but it's not, but it's by design, and I've realized this afterwards. So if you look at what's on my chest here, right? You see this? Okay, this to a lot of people this looks like a pretty logo, but let me break it down for you for a second, right? The black here, the black as this part of this logo represents every color. It represents the totality of everything that we have available to us in the universe. It means that our resources are unlimited. That's what the black represents. It also represents supreme balance. So it also means that you have the ability to remain strong and to remain stable in the face of anything that attacks you, approaches you, tries to throw you off, right? The gold represents the value that we can bring. It represents the royalty in our heritage. It represents the monetary value. It represents the spiritual value. It represents the value that I was talking about that comes from the thing that you love. The you in the middle here, most people see that and think, okay, that represents ultra. Actually, the secret meaning behind it, it's not so secret because it's in the book, but most people don't read the book. It's actually representative of the Egyptian symbol for water, which is mu, M-U. If you look at the Egyptian symbol for water, it looks like a U. The reason why it's water is because water has the ability to fit in everywhere and everything. It has the ability to transform into different states and still exist. It's very difficult to get rid of or to be without water. And actually really good entrepreneurs, and kind of going back to Dean's, I love the Windows 7, 8, 9. It's actually just saying, look, you can start water flowing from a stream, it then goes into a river, then turns into an ocean, right? And the reason I explain that is because when I wear this, and this, me wearing this is just a representation of the way that I think, it is very difficult for negative people to stay in my space. It's almost impossible for people just don't even come to me with that. That's why I often feel like there's some immediate repellent against people who approach me with negativity, because the thing with negative people is they want other negative people to talk to and help validate their negativity, right? What they really don't want is for you to shut their negativity down to the point where it then throws them out of their comfort zone, right? As misery loves company. So with someone like myself, there is very little that anybody can come to me that I won't shut down very quickly. And so there's no value in negative people giving me their negativity. There's no value. They're not going to get anything out of it, because negative people generally don't express their negativity to get a solution. That's not really why they do it. The reason why they do it is because they want company in their misery. They want to complain about stuff. They want to bitch and moan. They want to stay within their comfort zone, because even though it's negative, doesn't mean it's not comfortable to them, because you become used to it. You become used to it. You become comfortable with it, and it's the reason why people, stay in toxic relationships, and why they'll, keep a negative cycle in their diet or in their mental diet, etc., etc. Right? It's just how human nature is. So if you want to remain dirty, you don't go towards something that's going to repel that dirt. You don't do that. You go around and you stay around other people that can appreciate your dirt, right? So I guess going back to my first statement, it feels like I'm fortunate in that I don't have people. Now, what then happens is you have people who are attracted in a positive sense to what you're doing. And I can generally say over the last 10 years, probably not prior to that, the people that I have around me are people who push me, who take me out of my comfort zone. I don't, I've part of me's done that deliberately, but part of, the universal effect of people bonding who are on a similar mindset, and who are in a similar point of flow, means that you attract people who are trying to achieve the same things as you, even if it's for a season. Yeah, I have so many of those types of people. There is no room for negative people. There's literally no room. They can't even get in, even if they want to get a meeting with me to, and often, and again, just going back to what Dean said, and I'm really glad that he's repeated the spiritual aspect of it. We're not just physical beings. I mean, everybody knows it, but people dance around it because there's, so many misinterpretations. You don't want to sound woo-woo, but the fact is, I rely very heavily on my intuition. Very heavily on my intuition. If I feel like I shouldn't go somewhere, I don't go somewhere. I don't need reason. I don't need logical reason all the time, because I can trust in my inner voice and my subconscious, even if they want to get scientific with it, to actually be able to analyze scenarios and just give me the answer. It doesn't need to give me the intricate step by step. Just tell me what it is. And if I don't feel like and it's funny because my old man was around here for Sunday dinner, and he was sitting down and he was saying that, sometimes he'll sit down and he's supposed to go somewhere and he's frozen to his seat. He says, and I just don't go. And then he says, only to find out that this or that happened if he had gone there, etc., right? And my dad's almost 80. Now you can equate that to him being wise, but actually we have that mechanism within us. But there's nothing in the educational system and even in our social system that encourages us to be introverted enough, or not introverted, introspective enough to recognize, trust, and act upon that inner voice. So, and I say those three things specifically because to recognize it is to honor it and to realize that it's there. To trust it is then to actually listen to it and give it some credence. And then the last thing is we've all had that voice, and I still do it. I'm sure we all still do it. We all have that voice that will talk away, but we don't always act on it because we're so conditioned into needing logical reason to do things. We still don't act on it. And, a lot of the people out there who seem to have all the luck in the world and, oh my goodness, how did that person get from here to there? Sometimes it's just because they listen to that thing, and that thing inside you is designed to shortcut the journey. You may have logically written down, it's going to take me 10 steps to get from here to there, but your subconscious or that inside voice has actually worked out 3 steps, and it will say, no, just go away and do that. But you don't trust it because it doesn't make logical sense. So you go away and do your 10 steps, which might take 10 years, when the thing inside you would have actually said, no, you could have done it in 3 steps, it would have taken 3 months, which is the reason why the aspect of spirituality or being mindful and recognizing that other aspect of you is hugely, hugely important.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That I'm talking about. I mean, you've hit the nail right on the head with everything that you said. And again, I just want to remind people you're watching Black Eyes TV 7. The show today is with Dean Oki and Julian Hall, just giving us their insights on the economic mind state of the nation and basically what mind state in general you need to be successful in life. One of the main things. Am I cutting out? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're cutting out.
1 second. one of the
But I'll continue. Try and sort your technical problem.
Hold
As I was saying.
hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me? One sec, Tel.
We can hear you. You're good?
Yeah.
You're good.
Before we move into the next session, one of the things I did want to ask the two of you is, because we've touched on education, we've touched on the spirituality angle. Dean, you've spoken about homeschooling. We haven't actually touched on Julian's personal situation, but in both of yours opinion, moving forward for our community, what way do you see best to educate our children? Do you see it as a homeschooling angle? Do you see it as building schools that are Black run, where we can obviously set the curriculum on a more mass scale? You know, how do you see us moving forward in the education and instilling of all the values that you've talked about, the intuition, the understanding of your ancestors, all of these things? You know, where do you see going forward? I want to start with Julian on this one, and then I'll go to Dean. Yeah.
I'm a big advocate of homeschooling when it's done right. I was actually homeschooled for the first few years of my life. I'm not sure why, but I came into school late. I was the new boy. But as a result, I was ahead of the class. And I guess I always remained that way. And I can now attribute it to the fact that my mother homeschooled me for the first, few years. My sister, Leah Salmon, is a very well-known homeschooling mum. She set up an organization called Teaching Our Own. She runs an annual conference on that topic, and she homeschools her 6 kids, and she provides, support for that. There are other individuals in my network, mums who are homeschooling and parents who are homeschooling on a regular basis. My ultimate view on it, I guess, so my view on it at the moment is that you cannot place the education of your child on the school. You just can't. It's not enough by a long stretch. And the only way that I've seen schooling effective is if it's in small classes with very, very good teachers in education environments that are conducive to learning, where the culture is different. The issue with schools at the moment is ultimately schools are driven by grades. Grades have very little to do with the development of your child. They are a purely academic and theoretical exercise to tick Ofsted boxes. And teachers know this, parents know this. And I just think that there's so much wrong with the educational system. The challenge that we've got with the educational system is that it's not like you can close it down and refurbish it in 7 days and reopen it. It's not going to work like that. So setting up alternative mechanisms to pick up where education is left, whether it's through organizations like Black History Studies and others, organizations where there are homeschooling networks and all the rest of it. I think that it then becomes a very personal decision, because ultimately you're responsible for your child's learning. If you think that you can do that successfully through an orthodox schooling system, then that's great. If that's what you think you can do, that's great. If it needs to be a mix, then that's great too. If it needs to be homeschooling, then perfect. I don't think that there is right this moment today. If we had our own schools, then yes, that would be the perfect scenario. And going forward, there are a number of initiatives that are out there, some which I'm involved in, to create our own schools. So that's something that is certainly on the cards. But again, that takes a lot of work, and it's not. I don't want to say it's not something that's guaranteed, but there are different ways to do that, and it takes a responsibility from a group of people that really want to see that thing through to the end. And I say that only because there've been lots of people who've tried to start schools, but have underestimated the gravity of that as a responsibility for children, and for a lot of people it hasn't worked. So if it's going to be approached again, it just needs to be done properly. And I know that sounds obvious, but it's the reason why I say if you're going to homeschool, know how to teach kids, because it's like saying, you know, homeschooling isn't an option if you cannot educate, because you know, I've worked with homeschooling kids who are behind kids in school. It's not supposed to be that way, right? So what's the common denominator? It's not the system. It's not whether it's the traditional educational system, the private educational system, or the homeschooling system. It's the person delivering it and the system that's put around them delivering it. Actually looking forward, education, I believe, is going to be, you know, when BT used to have the monopoly on telecommunications and mobile communications, and then what was the word? It wasn't dismantled, it wasn't disrupted. There's a word that described that market being, you know, decentralized, right? I can't remember the term now, but the same thing's going to kind of happen with education, because at the very higher end, we know that if you want to go to university, or if you want to get a university education, you can do it online, right? You can do it through things like Udemy. You know, you don't have to go to an institution to get that kind of learning. That ability, the ability to do that hasn't trickled down to secondary and primary school education yet. And it just takes people or the tech to catch up to where universities are at, for people to say, actually, you know, we have all of the learning that we can apply ourselves in a much more effective way. So I think that education is going to become decentralized, because right now, most people just believe that you've got to send your kids to a normal school. That is the only way. But that's only because there aren't enough examples, not yet, and it's starting, but there aren't enough examples yet of kids who've gone through the homeschooling experience and have come out of the other end. And the reason why I say enough is because it feels like the examples that are there almost seem anecdotal. Like, okay, well, it was okay for you because you had the perfect scenario to make that work. When actually it's not true. It's actually just the commitment of the parent and the homeschooler to make that work. And again, it's not for everybody, because some people don't have the economic framework to be able to afford to stay at home and educate their kids. So I think there's a lot of dynamics that are surrounding that. But to kind of conclude on this segment and my answer is, right now, parents need to take the responsibility of educating their children firmly under their wing. They need to take the responsibility of that. It doesn't matter at what level, whether it's at primary school level. I mean, for example, I just don't think there's any need for exams. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't think there's a need for SATs, GCSE, A-level degree. I think all of that just needs to just completely go in the bin, because the philosophy behind why they are in place is to suggest that kids and young people are going to take on learning that is going to help them in life. That's no longer true. So now exams are just a requirement of the school. They do not genuinely help children anymore, right? And I think a lot of people realize that. So they're just being pushed through this sausage machine of education. And I just think that there needs to be aspects of alternative curriculums, which do exist out there, but again, they're not widespread enough for there to be enough comfort levels and trust for other people to adopt them. But there are alternative education systems out there that don't include exams. I did a Facebook Live the other day about how Finland are going to drop subjects. So they're no longer teaching history, geography, maths, and English as separate subjects. They're going to teach contextual learning. So instead of learning about maths, let's learn about banking. Instead of learning about English, let's learn about how a business might, present its products and services, and you get the literacy in that way, right? Instead of learning about geographies, let's learn about what happens when a volcano explodes, right? So it's all contextual, and the knowledge transfer that exists between the subjects is completely siloed off. So a child might be able to write 500 words in English, but they don't realize that they can transfer that to write 500 words in geography, because the educational system hasn't made it so. Whereas more contextual learning enables you to do that. So countries like Finland are going to be way ahead of us in our ability to do that. But what it does demonstrate is that it is doable, it can happen, and there is no reason why that kind of system can't exist within the UK. I think it just requires a little bit of vision, some organisation, and a lot more responsibility around the education of our children and young people.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Dean. Give us a little overview of your perspective of things.
Yeah, because I have a little perspective. It's slightly different from Julian's position. Because I don't think it's subjective. I don't think it's subjective at all. I didn't know Leah Salmon was your sister, brilliant lady. I invited, incidentally, Julian and his sister into the solution room based on their brilliance. Now, the teacher that I have as the project manager for the educational division, who is putting together the African Caribbean curriculum, was in charge of marketing at the Voice newspaper, who got their ABC through the roof when it was African owned. She's head of year 11. When I knew her and worked with her from 93 to 96 in Gladesmore Secondary School, doing emotional literacy sessions from year 7 to year 11. And she used to bring me and a colleague of mine named Lulette Hudson from One Hand Can't Clap. Now, she is an MBE. She is an Ofsted teacher as well. And her credentials are second to none. Now, I had also invited in Manhood Academy for the citizenship skills. Can you imagine an assembly when you start school? Not even assembly, when you get into your classroom. I am my brother's keeper and my sister's protector, in front of a flag, which is red, black, and green. Can you imagine where you learn financial literacy, and when you are learning mathematics, you're basing it on practical business from nursery to university? Can you imagine where you go through a rites of passage as young people, where you are trained to go from being boys and girls to becoming young men and young ladies into grown men and grown ladies? See, I don't think it's subjective. I don't homeschool out of choice. I homeschool out of necessity, because you've never seen lions rolling around in mud pretending they're pigs. Now, I no longer work with schools, so I'm free to say what I like. So I'm going to speak my social truth. Lions act as lions because they have a lion spirit. The female hunts, the lion protects, and the cubs learn to be lions. They are not taught to roll around in mud and impersonate pigs, because lions do not give their cubs to pigs on farms to get mud in their manes. This is a fact. So the whole reason for me having there's a greater architecture at play with the solution room. It's not education in isolation. It is I explained in the beginning. This is a socio-economic resolution that is going to take over and encompass every area that white supremacy currently occupies, so we don't revert back to any piece of their solution for short-term gains. So when I speak of an educational institute, we're constructing 2 charities. One of them is to extrapolate the black taxable pound from the UK economy to purchase freehold buildings. Did you hear that? Every single business in the nation is entitled to donate 100% of their taxable income to a charity of their choice. No taxation without representation. So let's take it back. That charity, the overall charity, is to purchase freehold buildings. to convert on the one part, and let's stick with education, into schools. You strip out that building, you flush it with fiber optic cables, you make it a tech building. That is a building which is an educational institute of the highest magnitude. So now you also create an educational television network. Julian was invited in because I believe that you are the man of the magnitude to contribute to an educational television network, which is international in its focus, which runs all the way from nursery to university, with educational shows that go from citizenship, entrepreneurialism, emotional literacy, really important in our young people. And I believe that our PE should be physically engaging. So for young men, why wouldn't we employ boxing or martial arts from nursery so that they learn to manage their bodies? And remember, in an assembly, I am my brother's keeper. So you have physical exchange with your brother, which is engaging. You have an assembly where you say, I am my brother's keeper, but I am my sister's protector. Let's not hide from some of the really insidious acts that happen in our community with our young men. Gang rape, because we can't extrapolate the proliferation of pornography in our children's culture. When I was a child, you had to have ambition to gain pornographic materials. Me personally, I used to go into the shop. I was a little thief. We had to shoplift. You had to show ambition. Now you can be totally wackless, devoid of entrepreneurial skills, and just download it. You just yes, sir. You just type it into your phone or your device. No, we had ambition. And do you want to know my very first business? Because I said what I did at 18. No, it wasn't. I held back on you people. My grandmother was a cleaner in an advertising company. And while I was sitting in the lobby of the advertising company, reading the magazines, I came across a publication called Penthouse. And there were about 8 of them. I saw one first, but I found the rest. Now, on the front of that magazine, there was a guy riding a motorbike. So I picked up Penthouse. Second page. Oh, God. I found heaven. And she was pink at that time, but I didn't know any. Now, I ran through that magazine. I became a librarian. Now, there were 8 copies of Penthouse, and I put them in a carrier bag. And my gran, when she'd finished hoovering and cleaning, said, "Are you okay? Did you have a good time?" Now, when I got home, I thought about the enjoyment that I had got from looking at these naked ladies. And then I started to tear the pages from the magazine. Now, my mother has told every single young lady that I have ever brought home to her about this when she was invited down to the school, because it didn't take more than half a day. I was selling these pages from Penthouse to young men for tuck money. And the next day, my mother was invited down. Mrs. Okai, your son was selling this material, held it up. That was my birth into entrepreneurialism. So I'm just throwing that into the mix, that the insidious nature of extreme pornography now, where there is no graduation for our young people, they go into the extreme. And that's devoid of humanity, as we know. So because I don't believe this is subjective, and acknowledging that I homeschool from necessity, I would far rather know that my son were in an environment surrounded by peers, receiving an education which involved emotional literacy, financial literacy with an entrepreneurial spin, citizenship, Keely, where after boxing the hell out of your brother, you hug him and know that you would never pick up a sharp implement to touch him. Because I could put all of the amazing work that I believe I have in my cerebellum into my son and invest 20 years emotionally, spiritually, and financially. And then one of those children that I decided didn't matter, because I'm all right, Jack, could steal my son from me. I know that. No time. So that educational consortium is to cover every single functional component of our people in the second charity. Now, the school system, all of it occupy all of the physical schools across the boroughs. So as they say, our teachers are leaving at rates which are vastly inflated and increased. No problem. We are creating institutions for them to enter and then go through a particular training to train our young people. So when we talk about a mainstream, I don't say mainstream with regards to, look, it's when you say mainstream, you're saying European. When I talk about television production, people say mainstream. When I talk about mainstream, I'm talking about quality of delivery. We are going to deliver a mainstream education. So let's not pretend we're talking about the European thing. Let's separate. A European education is not ideal for our children. When I go to the National Portrait Gallery, it has nothing to do with me. When I watch Europeans, fascinated and in awe, looking at God, Jesus, they're not worshiping Jesus. They're worshiping themselves. Understand that. My son stood with me and we had this conversation. Superhero, look at them. And they're speaking in Italian. Wow, they're worshiping themselves. I don't blame them because they're amazing. To them, not me. Lampposts. So they're not in my way. It's an alternative education system because we are alternative people. Look at the animal factories that are processing our young people. If they had citizenship skills, they would not leave chicken boxes on the bus full of bones, saliva, and ketchup. If they had citizenship skills, they would not walk around with their backside out of doors. If they had citizenship skills, they would not think about gang raping the most beautiful commodity and flower that we have, our young ladies. They will protect them. When they're on the bus, she will be on the inside. When they're on the tube, she will be on the inside. Anybody mess with her, they will protect her. And like when you saw the young people pull the police off of that young man. Lion. That is our community nature. That is citizenship in execution. I call them warriors. Touch one, touch all. Imagine you stood in an assembly, and as your assembly finished, your headmistress, headmaster, whoever gave that assembly stood up and said, touch one, touch all. And you heard that rapture returned. Touch one, touch all. Now you start to realize an African center. So you see that consciousness that is created from an assembly like that. I am my brother's keeper and my sister's protector. Touch one, touch all. I could never be pushed to put my hand on my brother in a nefarious way. And the school will create systems and processes to deal with it. Not like European teachers who see a bully come with a knife at the school and tell the teacher, the parent, the teacher, the student has to come in, or they're going to call, what are they called?
Social services.
Not social services superhero, but the ones when you miss school. Truancy officers. So we understand our measures, checks, and balances. We understand our children. One thing I don't want you to extrapolate from that equation, because we talk about the spiritual component, is European teachers' lack of empathy for our children, which is why our children experience an overprojection by Europeans who are terrified of our babies because of their size, because of their mannerisms and culture, just overproject like beasts. And what that does is it breaks down our baby's spirits. Not mine, not her. That is my greatest investment. But we need to duplicate that in a systemic way. So once you understand that white supremacy is a scientific system, you must now formulate and create and roundtable a scientific response which is systemic in its execution, but is bespoke to benefit us. Because we don't desire to turn out cogs in wheels, do we? What we desire to turn out is fully realized human beings. That process goes from nursery to university. And at the stages where we're developing, before you have access to the physical buildings in going across the board, you'll be able to download an app with all of the television curriculum. Shows that geniuses like Julian enable us to produce. Going across the board, duplicating exactly what Dr. Boyce Watkins is doing with his Young Millionaires program. I see Julian as a UK Dr. Boyce Watkins. And I see no reason why we shouldn't be formulating those educational programs. So, do you know the greatest joy my heart would have? The greatest joy my heart would have would be to see an end to our supplementary schools. It would be a joy in my heart. And do you know why? Because we would have created the institutions that amalgamate all of our greatest skills. And I'm just going to say one thing, because my son is bothering me, he's bothering me, he's bothering me. He will not leave me alone. If you knew the amazing focus I had with this off-camera young man, what he wants to show you is the Sankofa bird. He's more of an advocate than me because it's in my suit and I'll transfer it to another suit. This young man wears this every day. This is our poppy. This is to this represents our observation of the African Holocaust, the worst atrocity on earth. This young man has been drawing sketches, poking in my face. Dad, show them the Sankofa bird. You're forgetting your duties. This is for universal adoption. This young man just drew these and he's bothering me. So now exit camera, superhero. La 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 la. We need them to have an extraordinary cultural observation. That young man is just an example of it. But I don't want it for my seed because I'm not a rapper. So I don't want to tell you my child is better than yours. My child is greater than yours. My child is stuck. No. You see, when my son has peers and I can see them sitting in a room and you see me laughing like this, I know that we went through this process and I get in another room to cry. To know that I did it whilst homeschooling him with colleagues who were performing all of these tasks in there every day before they got paid and put this machine work together. And now we can go and sit in an institution and look at 500 of our children in buildings we own in trust with a red, black and green flag. 100 children in unison say, I'm my brother's keeper and my sister's protector. And you'll hear sisters repeat, I'm my sister's keeper and my brother's protector. I go and go somewhere and burn. I cannot wait to see the back of every supplementary school and to see people like Julian, who were the architects of it, millionaires because of the part that they played when it was exponentially grown and then rolled out across the nation and then rolled out globally, because our partners in the US, will in the Caribbean, will in African states duplicate what we create. And then what they create will be amalgamated, because we want to come to the conclusion of is a universal African Caribbean educational curriculum. And then do you know what that will do? That will be the start of an African codes of conduct for us as a people, which is a roadmap for universal observation. Not sometimes, all the time. It's not universal, it's subjective. Go look at your mother and father. You don't know what you're talking. The road system. Red means stop. Amber means get ready. Green means go. That's universal. Not if you time it from green and you got it. Quiet. Red means stop. Amber means get ready. Green means go. For a people. So when we say stop, that means observe, brothers and sisters. When we say get ready, make you know. When we say go, we're not gonna be niggas anymore.
Listen, that was a beautiful wrap up. I hope everyone could hear me. This is Black Eyes TV, and the name of the show today is the Mindset of an entrepreneur and building a legacy for the next generation. Because again, making money is just one facet. If you've taken anything away from today's show, speaking to these two brilliant young guys who are trying to do things for our community, and I know Terry's got more to add, yeah, you need to understand there's a bigger picture than just the money transactions. Yeah, as my brother stated quite clearly, there's a code of conduct that's needed. There's an ethical code. There's a spiritual code that needs to be observed and held together and galvanized for that to amplify to a level where we, as the title says, can create that true legacy moving forward. Going back to the beginning of the show where we talked about companies that have 100-year plan. Yeah, it's back to that. We can't just think for ourselves, we've got to think for the kids and the kids of the kids and the kids of the kids. Yeah, so all I can say again, just before Terry comes in, is thank you again to both of you, because you've been bringing some big information. And again, I'm glad I had the two of you on the show together. Right? Good decision, Terry. Yeah, that's one for the team. That's a definite, yeah. Like, I know Terry's got something to say. Chime in, Terry.
As I was saying before, in the full aspects, Julian, how would I apply my entrepreneurship in a spiritual, mental, and physical way? Because a lot of people can understand it in that form of physical sense, but a lot of people don't really understand that spiritual or mental way of dealing with things. How do you deal with it?
How do I deal with the challenges that it brings? Because you cut up a little bit.
Yeah, with the challenges.
Okay, so this is the thing. So when I referred to the black being representative of supreme balance, all right, so let me kind of wind back to the underlying philosophy behind ultra and entrepreneurship. So ultra really comes from an old word which means beyond. And it means that you've got to go beyond thinking within the confines of what you've been socialized into or currently educated into, because those things are very, very limited. Today, they would have the term growth mindset, but it's about always challenging your comfort zones. And just going back to when you asked, what was my entrepreneurial growth and thinking like? It was being comfortable with being outside of my comfort zone continuously, right? Because that's when you know that you're always pushing the boundaries, you're always growing. Now, what entrepreneurship actually suggests, and the reason why it's not entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is typically attached to enterprise, and enterprise is commercial, and that is directly to do with money. What entrepreneurship suggests is that you need to create what we call an enabling environment for your success. That enabling environment includes four things. It includes your ability to maintain your physical and nutritional health, because without that, there is nothing you can do. Your ability to maintain your own internal well-being, that knowledge of yourself, because if you lose your identity, you lose yourself, there is nothing you can do. Then being able to develop, foster and maintain positive relationships, both personally and professionally. Because if you don't have an enabling network of people who are around you, and we talked about how you deal with negative people around you, be it your spouse, your brother, your sister, the people that you work with, there is nothing that you can do. And lastly, if you don't love what you're doing, then it's not sustainable. So those four things actually underpin the philosophy behind entrepreneurship. So what those four things do is they keep you in balance. And if you are kept in balance, then it means that you can effectively deal with pretty much anything that life throws at you, pretty much any challenge. In fact, you don't even see it that way. You see every potential challenge or negative experience as an opportunity, right? Because you're thinking beyond that immediate experience. And many of us have gone through the process of something seemingly bad or negative happening to us, And then it could be days, months, or years later, we realize that we learned something from it and it's actually a positive. So you wouldn't, you hear a lot of people say, I wouldn't have changed anything, because in retrospect, they can piece together how that journey has gotten them to the place that they are now. So my suggestion is, why do we need to wait until 20 years have passed before you've realized that that negative was actually positive? Change the way that you view that negative right now. Think beyond the immediate experience of that negative, and realize that even if you can't see what the reasoning is, what you can get out of it now, but you do know that there will be a positive. You do know that you'll be able to gain from that experience, right? But again, it's not how we're taught, it's not how we're educated, it's not how we're socialized. So that's effectively how I do it. So what it means is, and you know, you look at those 4 things, you say, yeah, but you're never going to be 100% nutritionally and physically and spiritually. You might have some challenges with things that you're doing. You're not always going to have the best relationships personally and professionally. But what you will do is, where one thing is weak, the other thing is strong. So you will always, so it's a balancing act. That's why it's not called supreme stability, it's called supreme balance, because balance suggests that there's movement. Balance suggests that sometimes you're gonna need to put more effort into your diet and exercise, or sometimes you're gonna have to put a bit more effort into the relationships you've got, or sometimes you've got to revisit your passions to work out what your purpose is, right? But it's an ongoing process. And it's something that remains organic and dynamic. It never stops. It's not something where you say, okay, I'm done now, I'm good, because you're always growing. So understanding that means that the expectations that you have for you and those around you now change. And as Dean said earlier on, you get to the point where you only expect people to do what they're going to do and how they are, as opposed to what you perceive of them, right? So it's almost like saying, why would you get upset with somebody who's always late if they're now going to be late? Because you then get to the point where you understand people for what they are. And in doing so, you then become a master builder, because a master builder doesn't take a screwdriver and expect it to hammer through a brick wall. They don't take a hammer and expect you to screw in a nail. You understand the way in which that tool has been designed, and therefore how you can use it. And that then gives you the ability not just to build a house, but to build empires, because you understand what those tools and what those structures actually mean within the grand scheme of things. So then what it enables you to do is, again, it sets your expectation about how long things should take, how well things should be done. Things aren't always going to be perfect, but they're always a work in progress. Even when you think they're perfect, there is still a way for them to go, because the circumstances, the world, the environment, everything's going to change. So what you thought was right ends up in 5 years' time now becoming irrelevant. So it has to always be something that I call, you know, even in our curriculum, we call it a living, dynamic curriculum. It's not something that is done and it stays on the shelf and that's it. It's something that is always updated. It's something that is always responding to the needs and challenges of our children and young people all the time. And that is what you need to apply in all of those areas in your life, which will enable you to respond really effectively to, or whether it's negative challenges, positive, because there are positive challenges as well, right? And there are people who are presented with the thing that they've always dreamed about. They get the opportunity and actually they're afraid of it. You know, being afraid of failure is the same as being afraid of success. It's actually the fear of change, right? But recognizing that change is a constant then sets your expectation about what's happening in the present. So I'm saying all of that to say that our need to be adaptable and to be responsive to everything that's happening around us is the thing that keeps us in a place where we can be okay with that as a change. In fact, you then start to lead the change because it's constant evolution. So it's okay saying, okay, well, you've got to understand that constant is a change. You've always got to respond to change. But then who's causing the change? Who's archetyping the change? What philosophy is driving that change? And then you realize, actually, I can lead that change. So you go from being in a place of, okay, complaining, then you create solutions, but the solutions often require a bigger shift. And that shift comes from saying, well, let me lead the change. Let me lead the way in being able to deliver a change that is going to last 100 years. Not just because there are solutions that we need that are going to be immediate, right, as in today, changes that we need for a decade, for the next 20 years, and then solutions that we need for 100 years. Now, the strength in the conviction behind that is important, because most people aren't going to rock with you on a 100-year plan. They're just not, because they're either not going to see the vision, they're not going to see the reason why, but that's okay. It doesn't take everybody to be able to do that. And again, it's being able to understand as that master builder where everybody sits within the process of where we need to get to.
Richie, is there any questions that anybody needs to ask?
All right. Well,
As the chat room is going.
When I'm looking in this chat room right here, one of the questions here is, what is the first stage to create the Black Pound theory?
Any of you guys like to answer that?
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Dean?
Hold up. Wait, Dean. We can't hear you just yet. Just give me a sec. Talk now, Dean.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. The first stage is us organizing in the dark and not announcing our plans. Bankers, financiers, tech experts to create our own payment gateways. Stim banks internationally work by creating apps to create consumer finance and build that in the ways of partners of old. As I said in the beginning, when we actually used to buy houses before we were allowed to have bank accounts, and then ceased purchasing houses. So when you're formulating a Black economy, what you don't do is run out in the street and say, this is what we're doing. No, you sit around board tables with your contemporaries, and to circumvent learning curves, you immediately induct those from a banking background. So on the tech side, for instance, that built the security systems in banking. From a tech side, you take someone who was a project manager in building the infrastructures of banking. From a tech side, you would take somebody who was possibly working with banks now in creating their Bitcoin. You may be surprised to know that banks are working on creating their alternative currencies right now. And do you know who's right in there? We are. So no, we're not announcing names. No, we're not announcing how we're doing it. But guess what? We're doing it. Now, we have a payment gateway, which is an alternative to PayPal. And guess what? We're going to use that for universal adoption. So every single facet and component that we need to create a Black economy from the UK, duplicate that in the US, we have inside the solution room. That is one committee in and of itself. So there are things that happen, and there are things that, because not all of our conversations at this stage are supposed to be minuted. Listen to David Banner. He will give you some small pearl. Don't talk so much. There is nobody to impress anymore. Impress upon your people results. Because what we need to build that economy requires work, not talk. And that work will come from experts in the field so that there is no learning curve. Now, if these people are being trained with continuous training today, why are we making anything up? Is bringing all of that expertise around one table, putting a tech project manager in place, an economics project manager in place, an educational project manager in place, a holistic lifestyle project manager in place with much expertise all around them. Now, because I'm privy to all of the machinations that are happening, because I'll be attending all of those meetings. I know how the architecture rolls out, but what that is in the bigger picture is an ecosystem, a complete ecosystem that serves us. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room anymore. Yes, I understand how it all dovetails and fits together, because what Julian will attest to is that as entrepreneurs, we have unique problem solving skills. We know how exactly to turn lemons into lemonade. We would look at, you'd put us in a jail room, and every other person in the room would be looking at the steel door. 100 years. Me and Julian are looking at the window. Say, you're blind. Don't you know you're supposed to start picking around the window? Bars that they put on the window are actually going to enable us to pull it out of the wall. And that's how we're going to escape, because we have unique skills. Me and this young man only came to collect the takings from the shop. It was a bank robbery. We were supposed to be doing this around the kitchen table with this young man in his bed or watching a movie in his pajamas. Now I got to spring for a cab. You see what you done?
We increased that economic burden for you on this occasion. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, not at all.
It's
always done out of love.
That's all. It was worth it for the people then, because I know they're loving what they're hearing right now. While I just got here, because I know Julian and Terry's got their camera kind of off right now. Let me just, while I got you here, let me post something to you that's coming up in the chat room. Right now, people are asking about this election that's coming up.
Yeah.
Julian, I'm going to bring you back in on this question as well, now that you're back with us. People have been asking about this election and all this kind of behavior. It doesn't matter, you know, what's your take on it? One of the things I've always said, yeah, my problem with voting and that kind of behavior, yeah, is most of the time we never have a candidate that is appropriate for us. And one of the key things that I think is wrong with the system is that for the normal person on that ballot sheet, there's no vote of no confidence, which I believe there should be.
Yes.
Because again, if you've got 5 candidates and none of them speak to the people, there should be a box there to say that I don't like none of these guys, instead of losing this so-called vote. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just what's your opinion on that? You know, let me hear Julian first, let him kick in, and then go to you, Dean, and tell us what you think on that one.
You know what? I've got no comment.
Woo! Listen.
I actually don't want to talk about it.
You
I just don't want to talk about it. I'm sure Dean can wax lyrical for the both of us, but yeah, I just don't. I've got absolutely no comment. I just don't want to talk about it.
Cool. There you have it. That's Julian Hall's opinion on this right now. Dean, over to you, my brother. What's your opinion on that?
Well, the solution room is a socio-economic solution. So, of this election, I'm only interested in one borough, and that borough is Lewisham. And I want to mobilize us. I want to socially condition us to teach us how to vote as a bloc based on our interests. Why? Because we have an African Caribbean independent to put forward as candidate for Lewisham. So we have shot a campaign that says, I'm not an ethnic minority in Lewisham. Why do we believe their statistics all the time when they call you ethnic minorities and fly out and become expats? So, knowing this may be hyperbole and intellectual masturbation, I don't take it on board. We have our own people quantifying how many of us are in the boroughs of Lambeth, Southwark, Lewisham, and Tottenham. Now, there are other boroughs for consideration. However, remember I said about universal law. Red means stop, amber means get ready, and green means go. If you are an African Caribbean resident of Lewisham. Trust me. Draw your gun, pull your trigger. Register to vote before June 8th. There is a candidate that represents your interest. We can put him in by a landslide. He is already politically active within a party. He may resign and announce himself as an independent. We have a campaign, which is a go. We are 100% behind him. Be behind him. Be a go. Then it's a war of attrition. You see, after we take on Lewisham, then we're looking for Southwark and Lambeth and Tottenham. Not with David Lammy, because I'm going to tell you something about politics. There is no such thing as a river without banks. Ladies and gentlemen, all boys and girls, whoever I'm speaking to. The river flows within the banks. That is legislation and party policy.
Awesome.
Your black candidate from Labour flows within the banks of Labour policy. Understand, when you naively invest in partisan politics is for children. So whilst you have no interest in it, you are voting for a lesser evil. That is why we do not vote. Herein endeth the lesson.
Listen, I'm hearing what you're saying. I know the people are loving this information, and they're already telling me we've got suggestions for a part 2 show. So that's all a good look, because I feel like there's a few more questions me and you need to just chop up, yeah? And Julian, again, thank you for joining us, for giving us your insights. And again, you know what? I feel like you just need to go in a little bit more, Julian, for us on the Ultra Kids angle. I really want you to highlight what Ultra Kids does and what's plan moving forward as far as in with that last economic plan, that black pound.
So yeah, I guess for us, Ultra Kids and Ultra Education, it's not an academic exercise. Our ambition is to enable kids, well, through education, incubation and acceleration. So we introduce the concept of being able to take what you love and being able to monetize it. We then incubate them as you would a baby and help them to develop their marketing, raise capital, branding, packaging, positioning, all of that. And then once they've got the basics of a business in place, and we're talking kids from 5, 6, 7 years old, all the way up to, you know, young, older teens, we then put the necessary support around them to accelerate that business. So you've seen a number of our kids on London Live, on ITV, on the front pages of newspapers, getting a whole bunch of PR. And that's because we want to genuinely make them a success. For us, it's not just saying, oh, you know, we created some impact over here. No, we want them to genuinely be in a position where they can generate their own revenue at a young age. Because once they've done that, nobody can tell them when they get to 14, 15, 16, that they need to take a low paid job in an industry that they shouldn't belong in and that they really don't want to do, right? So that's our ambition, because at the moment you've got young teens who want to become entrepreneurs, but they don't believe that they can do it. And they don't believe that they can do it because they've not done it, you know. So they don't want, as Dean articulately put, the intellectual masturbation around the topic, because if they don't have the belief in themselves that they can do it, no person standing in front of them just blabbering on about it is going to change that effectively. Some people can, but most people can't. However, if they have an early experience of doing that, as I've had, as Dean's had, as a lot of entrepreneurs have had, because if you listen to a lot of entrepreneur stories, they relate something to an experience that they had early on in life that has influenced their ability to do what they're doing now. All we're doing is doing that deliberately, is we are engineering the ability to churn out as many kids as is necessary to demonstrate to children that this is possible. So, I mean, you know, we've got kids, you know, in our communities around Ultra who, you know, will be asking other children, do you have a business at 8, 9 years old? They're not asking them, have you got the latest trainers, or did you watch this thing on TV, or, you know, what hairstyle you're having? I mean, I overheard them having conversations saying, what's your business? Because my business is this and her business is that. What's your business, right? And this is the kind of conversation that we want them to have at a very early age, because ultimately, really, I mean, the honest truth is, we're not going to build anything without our ability to build a business. And it's not that everything is business, but it kind of is. And the mindset around being able to execute and develop a business, and conceptually, a business is taking an idea and doing and taking it from just a thought into reality, right? Your ability to take a thought and bring it into reality is a baseline requirement for success, right? So we want to shorten that process for kids, so that if whatever they want to do later on in life, whatever they want to do, they know that they can take that thought and create it and make something real from it and benefit from it. So that's what we're trying to do. That's the mindset that we're trying to create. And again, it'll give them the mindset that if anybody tells them they can't do it, as Dean says, they'll give them the Jay-Z head nod and be like, well, you don't think I can do it, but I know I can do it because I've done it. And that, you know, once you get to the point where you've done something, there is like no one can tell you nothing because you've done it. It's not even a point of confidence, it's a point of knowledge. So it's not even just this air of arrogance that I think I can do anything. No, it's now based on evidence. You can evidence the fact that you've done something, and use that as a basis to build on all of the other things that you want to do in the future. So that's what we're doing at Ultra. And you know, our ambition is to reach millions of kids and young people, and affect them with the methodology and with the results that we believe you know, aren't the reserve of well-funded demographics within our societies. Because when we look at a lot of entrepreneurial activities and campaigns and initiatives that have gone on for the last 10 years, and when I say this, people out there will know who I'm talking about, a lot of these kind of competition-based initiatives, the fact is that it's the middle class kids that win this stuff all the time. Why? Because they've got the resources. Their parents are usually running businesses, so they kind of get all of that. So it's not, you know, it's done in a very, very back to front way, right? So what we're trying to do is to level up the kids who don't necessarily have those immediate networks and that social mobility by giving them that mobility internally. So if they don't have the mobility externally through well-to-do networks, they've done it themselves. So imagine they then become the network that other kids and young people look towards. It's the reason why on the last couple of weeks, I've been pushing this young 16-year-old who has his own clothing line called Hustlers Prosper. And this isn't a plug, but it's an example. He just wanted to make a certain amount of money so that he didn't have to go to work, and that he didn't, not that he would, he's not the kind of character to go off and do badness, but what it demonstrates is that it is possible that, you know, you can an idea anymore, right? That if you engage, you get some support, you do some good work, and he said it was hard work, you know, you get some success, you respond to that success, that it is tangible, it's doable. It's not academic, it's not a theory, it's not something your parents say you can do because they want to make you feel good. It's not something that the teachers can do because that's their job to tell you. You've now closed that loop for yourself. And I suppose going back to you asking me, you know, what has really underpinned my entrepreneurial journey, it's been the fact that I know I can do it, not somebody told me I can do it, but I know I can do it because I've done it, I've evidenced it. And that knowledge, that concrete knowledge that you can, you know, turn nothing into something. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm not expressing it in the right way, but it is irreplaceable. That knowledge is irreplaceable. And that's the reason why entrepreneurs speak in a certain way and they have a certain buzz and they have a certain passion for what they do, because it's almost like the light bulb switch has gone off and they want to share that with other people, because it really does change your perspective on everything around you. It's not just about business, but it's about everything that you do. You know, entrepreneurship isn't just about setting up a business, making some money. It's about how you approach life. It's about how you approach problems, how you approach people, how you approach solutions.
Okay. Yeah. Big information, people. Much appreciated. I know, Terry, you got some stuff to bring up and highlight before we close out, or any questions, Tel?
Yeah, just on the aspects that we need Dean to talk about his business and explain what he's about and what he does as a personal businessman. Dean?
Yes, sir.
I just want you to close out. I know your son needs to go home and go to his bed. He needs to sleep.
You know what? He's got more energy. He's bored. Do you know what he wanted to do? I told him from he was however many years old is that he had to take what he loved and learn to monetize it. So at 10 years old, he is now in the exploration of monetizing his passion. I can't show the number of his credit card. That is his pick the credit card. That is his company, Draw World. He is learning to monetize Draw World, which is his passion. He draws incessantly. He films incessantly. He posts. That is my example. That is my ultra key. He is the living essence of it. I purchased for him his studio. He's got his video camera, his microphone. You explain it, Daddy.
So,
do I give you pocket money anymore?
No.
How do you get your money?
I have to earn my money by doing work for my dad, which I do with the solution room. And pretty much that's what I do to earn money, which I also get my own things with, just like I got these glasses. Let me put them on.
Put the Malcolm X glasses on.
But again, my company is for basically other people like me that wanted to draw a lot. But I just really like drawing, so I thought I would do something that I love to do and give it to other people, like my knowledge to other people, so I can give them information so they can learn and grow more in what they want to do, as I did by learning from reading books of anatomy and more things. So that's what my company is based on, really, just drawing. And my dad gave me my own little studio with a condenser microphone on an arm stand with my computer and an i7 core processor laptop. I just pretty much have everything I need. I have my video camera, which is actually over there, but I have everything I need. And I make videos about drawing. I do a lot of anatomy videos on my Twitter. But
Draw World, stop stealing my space. Go on, shut off.
Listen, tell us about the shop that you're sitting in, Dean. Like, because you're...
and another thing.
Bring him in, come on. Where are you sitting and conducting this interview today?
From Suits Direct, 57 Camden High Street.
All right.
And we go all the way from shoes to suits and overcoats.
Dean,
So,
Dean, can I say something? Can I say something to your son?
Yes, sir.
His name is Dean, correct?
Dean Jr.
Dean Jr. Dean, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say that you are an inspiration. You're an inspiration to thousands, tens of thousands, and potentially millions of other young people and adults around the world. You saying what you've just said has warmed my heart today. And I just want to say, it's the first time we've met, but I'm extremely proud of you, young man. what you've done, what you've talked about. I just think it's amazing. So keep doing what you're doing. Your dad knows everything that you're going to need to know in principle, and I'm sure in practice. So, and you being here, you're up late at night, but I know the reason why you're energized. You're energized because you're doing what you love, and there's nothing more important than that. Your job, young Dean Jr., your job is to keep doing what you're doing, because you are going to inspire so many other kids who in the next 10, 15, 20 years are going to look back and say to themselves, I saw a young man on a video who took his love for art and was able to earn some money from it. And he was my inspiration. You hear what I'm saying?
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
No worries at all. Proud of you. Keep up the very good work, D Junior. You hear me? Keep up the very good work. Very proud of you, young man.
I may be coming to.
All right.
But that's not even.
We'd love to have you. We're super proud.
Definitely. Pretty much.
Okay. T.
Yeah, as I was saying, Dean Junior, Dean Senior, keep up that good work. And it's as we always say, it's the proof in the pudding. So if we can show people and people can analyze what we do as a form of collective, because everyone here, if we can work and push something forward, we can be successful in it. The harder we work, the better success we get. So it's not about what that person's got, but it's by learning from what that person has. So basically, this has been running late. I know Dean's got his son to go home, as I said once again. It's getting late, but this is for our people, and we need uplifting, and we need some inspiration to push us forward. It's the same thing with Julian Hall. But Julian, you haven't even said how can people find you?
Hey yo, I'm not hard to find, man.
That's what people say.
I'm not hard to find. Well, I mean, the website is ultra.education. You can Google me, Google Ultra. If you need me, I'm here.
Okay. All right. What about you, Dean? If someone wants to contact
my phone number seems to be freely about the place now, because where you get my phone number? Oh, so and so gave it to me. Oh, see, it's like my mobile number is on the on Google. Bless you. So the shop is 57 Camden High Street. I'm here most days. I'm never ever in the shop on a Wednesday. It's always a homeschool day, and then I might take out a Tuesday or a Thursday. I do 2 days, and I couldn't do it without his mum, who does 3 days, so she takes the lion's share. And then it was a toss-up what he did on a Saturday. I'm a lazy blow, and his mum knew somebody across the way. He does the nation's Northwest London
Leadership Academy for young black boys, where we suit up in black and white, and we do the Nation of Islam drills, which is basically for discipline and for us not thinking,
but to focus on what we're doing. So he will call out right face, right face, right face, right face, and we will get the amount of times he's done it, and we will do it. So basically, it's for discipline, following actions, and more focus. And we also do writing and learning on Black history, and the main thing we're learning about is Africa. And we've been learning about the Sahara bird. We've been learning about a lot of stuff and doing a lot of things. But next week is Bring a Man Day, which I'm going to bring my dad. Well, it's this week, which we're going to go bowling, but we have to bring a man, and we're going to learn stuff there as well. But it's just an activity day, because we've had lots of learning days. And last time we went to a trampoline park called Oxygen. But yeah, it's pretty there you go
good.
And it was one of the two. My first inclination was Ultra Kids, and I contacted one of your colleagues, and I have him in my phone. I cannot even remember his name at this point. But when it's extended past the Saturday and I don't have to flip a coin, he'll be doing ultra-kicks.
That's a wonderful thing. But so what I'm trying to say is that I'm planning to do a big, massive photo shoot outside the Cleopatra's Needle. And I want loads of people to attend so we can have this legacy picture of everybody from that community to be put out there to the existence that we are a force coming. So I will be announcing the dates in the Solution Room and over the Facebook, and the day that we're going to actually meet. So I'm arranging that at the moment so that we can have that photograph, because you know what? There's a lot of us out here that are releasing legacies that nobody really gets to find out. So this is the time to show what we can do and what we are doing in this community, so we can leave that legacy. So, Rich, anything you need to say?
All right. Well, again, brilliant show, my brothers. You get me? Thank you again for blessing the platform. Julian Hall, Ultra Kids. If you don't know, get to know. Yeah. There's a lot going on over there. And again, for the thinkers, that Solution Room. Yeah. Join up. Facebook, it's there. Check it out. Have a look. Get involved. Run back the show and listen to what is needed to be a true entrepreneur, because there's a lot going on in that mind state. Yeah. And again, it's about building that legacy for our next generation. So, again, thank you to Julian Hall and Dean Oki. And again, I got to remind the people, African Liberation Day. Terry, please hold up the flyer. I don't have one to hand.
First most, we have the Matt Center. Don't forget, this is on Friday, the 26th. Check it out. Go to the Matt Center. Come and see Anthony Browder. He's got a lecture from the Nile to the Niger to the Mississippi. And at the same time, you can go to Public, who's got his books on the day, which will be applying and selling his books. We need to spend back. We need to put money into these bookstores, because a lot of these bookstores are closing down. So we need to fund them back and put them back into their perspective. All right. Same thing. You've got the Anchor Bean. Make sure you go there, buy from the Anchor Bean, buy from Basil in Brixton Hill. But there's another shop in Lewisham. There's another shop. Wherever you see a black person in the shop, just spend. Even if you're buying 10 sweet, just buy. At the same time, we've got African Liberations on the 28th and the 29th. It'll be a wicked time to take your children out to Birmingham, because a lot of us seem to want to stick it to this what we call area code. We want to stay in South London, we want to stay in North London, we want to stay in East London. Take a trip, jump on a train, go to Birmingham and come back. You never know what you might see. You never know what enjoyment you get, because we're living in a concrete city and it's full of dust. Need fresh air. So yeah, it's another place to go. But at the same time, you've got to subscribe to Black Eyes TV 7, because if you don't subscribe, you will not get this information. So please make sure you subscribe, or check me out on Facebook, Terry Mr. Riggs, or go to my Instagram. It's HKTHOLA on Instagram. And if you need to contact me on HKTHOLA@gmail for anybody that wants to sponsor shows or advertise within everything that we are doing. Because when we work as a collective, we become powerful people. Thank you.
That's all.
Go on, Richie.
That's all. And again, subject matters for shows, adverts, questions for future guests. You can find us directly here at BlackEyesTV7 at gmail.com. Yeah. The usual Instagram, Black Eyes TV, Facebook, Black Eyes TV 7. Yeah, we're all over the place. You'll see us on the ground. We don't just do this YouTube thing. Me and Terry on the ground promoting this at the events, live and dives. Again, African Liberation Day will be covered exclusively by Black Eyes TV. Let me just add that right now, yeah, just so people get to know.
But let the both guys that have blessed us so handsomely, so much, give us their last words.
Julian,
what your last word?
I just want to say that now is the time to take action. I think we are in we're in a very enabling time, and I just think that there is nothing that we're not capable of. As Dean has perfectly articulated, we have all of the experts around us. We have the experts. We have the intellectual capital. We have the physical capital. And we have the expertise to take action on all of the things that we've been talking about for the last 10, 15, 20 years. I honestly believe that we have a very unique window right now, as we speak today, right now, to really make an impact and to put a dent into the challenges that are in front of us. The long talking are done, and it's action man time. So that's the reason why you'll see me everywhere doing everything, because we need to accelerate what we do. And, you know, there's a time for talking, but, you know, we've had that. We still need to talk, but we need to act. And as Dean has said earlier on, we need to show and prove. We need to do more than we say. And I think that's one of the things that I try and do. I talk a lot, but I show results. Like, I'm not, you know, if you look at, even if you look at from the first day I talked about Ultra was just a book that I wrote. It was a book that I wrote 5 years ago. And that has now accelerated into becoming this movement, this philosophy, this idea. But it's been based on me taking action. And that's all I'm encouraging everybody to do, is just take action, just do something. Don't be afraid. Don't watch your face. If you don't worry about what people are going to think of you, what they're going to say about you. Just go and just do it. Just take a leap. If it doesn't work, if you fall flat on your face, you've learned something. Then it will just mean that you'll have a better shot at doing something else. But don't stand still. Don't just talk and complain. You've got everything. We've got everything that we need to take action. So that's all I'd really implore anyone to do. Just take action. And if you don't know how to take action, find someone who knows how to take action, because they're not far away. They're in a WhatsApp group. They're in a Facebook group. They're on a Google Hangout. There are people out there who can help you to take action. And that might be a genuine thing. Maybe you've got these ideas and you don't know what to do next, right? Speak to someone who does. If you don't want to be an entrepreneur, back an entrepreneur, right? You know, if it's not something, you know, that you can do tomorrow morning because, you know, you're just constrained by a number, back someone who is an entrepreneur, back someone who is making a change and making a difference, so that you can be a part of it. And that's where I'd like to leave it. Thank you for having me, guys.
Dean.
And gentlemen, we would all agree that I talk so much. I would just like to say that I'm humbled to be in the company of 3 alpha males who are doers. And I'm happy to be in the company of 3 alpha males that I know are contributing to their community in a massive way, and supporting sisters with their works, supporting Black businesses with their works. But other than that, just by being the examples in the community, you're showing men who don't know what the direction is, where to go, how to do it, and who to be. I don't underestimate that, no time. So just to be in the company of 3 alpha males makes me proud. I'm done. I talk too much.
You know what? and again, I gotta say myself, like, just on a personal note, as a single father recently, a couple of years now, like, again, yous are inspirational. I know we're gonna have future conversations and chop it up. you know, just from a personal note. And again, thank everybody for tuning in, for supporting, for asking questions and talking back and forth in the chat room. Yeah, the show is going from strength to strength. So yeah, people keep watching this space. We're going to have future shows coming up with other speakers from across the water and our organizations here, homegrown in the UK. The future show to look out for is we're going to have the Manhood Academy up, the whole crew of them talking about their initiatives, what they do, how they do it, and stuff. So yeah, look out for that. But again, thank you everyone for tuning in today. It's been a good couple hours talking and building, and yeah, look out for us again on the circuit Friday, Anthony Broder, African Liberation Day on the weekend. This is Black Eyes TV, Terry Riggs, HKTH. Big up everybody every time, yeah?